Hey guys, it's Dawn, and today I wanted to give you a closer look at one of our newest stamp sets. This is releasing on June 5th, and it's our watercolored anemones. Anemones. It's our watercolored anemones stamp set. So this one is based on one of my original watercolors. I've taken some of my sketches that I used to do watercolor and put them into stamp form. However, this is the first time I've taken a finished piece and translated it into vector form. So there are a million different ways that you can use this set. You can use as many or as few layers as you want, and you can really create other flowers other than just anemones with them. So today I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can use it, and I hope you find this helpful. I'm going to start with the recommended layering. The results will look the most like the original finished watercolor piece, and you can see there on the left that card, that little grouping looks the most like the original finished watercolor piece. You'll notice on the carrier sheet on the right there that all of the images that go together are grouped together. So this is a multi-step stamp set. Sometimes there's two, sometimes there's three images that you can layer on top of each other. You don't have to use all of the layers, but I'm going to show you the results if you use all of the layers the way that they are intended. So you will start with your base layer, and this is usually the fullest layer, and you'll want to use your lightest color for this layer. In this case, I'm using Wplus9's Little Piggy ink. Next, you're going to come in and add your detail layer, and you want to do either a shade darker, or you can stamp the exact same color on top of your previous color because it will be a little more intense. It's not going to give you as much contrast, so if you just want a subtle difference, then that's one way to do it. Here I'm going to go with our Sweet Gelato ink, and I'm going to stamp that on top. And then you're going to do the same thing for the other flower. Take one of the detail images and stamp that as well. Now you can use both of them or you can use one of them. It's up to you. I would recommend taking a sheet of paper and playing around with different color combinations. Play around with different layering. I will show you in just a bit here, I've used some of the detail images interchangeably between the flowers, and it really changes up the look and gives a lot of variety. So I'm not just stuck with just those two flowers. I can create a whole bouquet where each flower looks completely different and unique. And I'm going to continue building this by adding the flower centers, and then I'll move on to the leaves. There are two different stems included in the set, and to stamp mine I'm going to be using the Appletini dye ink this time. And our ink, it may stamp splotchy at first, and that's perfectly okay. As our ink dries, it does absorb into the paper, and it kind of self-levels or smooths itself out, and it just has a gorgeous, even finish. So because of that, when I'm doing 2 or 3 step stamping, I do give it a couple seconds between the first impression and then the color that I layer over it. If I want it to be more vibrant, I wait for that ink to fully dry before I stamp that second layer. It will not smear when you touch it, but it is not quite dry yet. So once you stamp that second layer on top, they'll kind of uh, blend together and dry together. But if you wait for the first layer to dry it and stamp the second layer, you'll get much more vibrant color on that second impression. And then I'm going to add the rest of my leaves, and oh goodness, please don't mind my dirty ink pad lids. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I recently spilled a whole jar of Sumi ink all over my floor and carpet. Well, my inks are stored underneath my craft table, and it happened to splash up everywhere, and I can't get it all off of the ink lids, so I have dirty ink lids. Don't tell anybody. So now I'm just going to add in some more little filler leaves around this bouquet. And this is really starting to shape up now. I'm giving those Appletini leaves time to fully dry so that I can then come in and add our detail layers. And for that, I'm just using a second impression of that same Appletini ink. And you can see here that it's a lot more vibrant and darker because it is now a double layer of that ink. And there we have the completed little bouquet. All you need now is a sentiment to finish this off, and for that I used the Hello from our Doodlebud stamp set, added some twine and put it on one of our coal mine card bases, and then I added a little iridescent embossing powder to the sentiment and the centers of the flower as well to kind of tie those together. And that's pretty much it. Alright, so let's move on to the second way that you can use the stamp set. I wanted to show you how you can really emulate watercolor with these by taking advantage of some second generation stamping and then just wiping a little bit of ink off of the stamp. I'm working with our Flamingo dye ink right now, and I like to stamp off on a scratch piece of paper sometimes. So you've got your first impression and then you have your second impression. And it's very light, but that's okay because when we come back over it with our detail layer, it's going to create much more depth. You could also alternately use a lint-free rag like this and take a little bit off and then stamp it. Now what you've done is broke up some of that color so it doesn't look like a stamped image. It's got some more variation in the coverage. And I'm going to be using both methods here in this particular one. So for this first one, I've taken the rag and I've wiped off just a little bit of ink. And then I'm going to start building my bouquet. Now instead of going for the solid base image, I'm actually going to grab one of the little detail layers and then I'm going to create my flower completely out of that detail layer. I want this to look like a smaller flower that's not quite fully open, so using these littler images is perfect for doing that. Now I'm gonna create a couple of these, make them look like they're tucked behind that bigger flower. And I know that right now this is going to look like a mess. It's going to look like I did not stamp my images very well. But trust me, once we start adding in the additional layers and we start getting deeper with our color, we're going to have some lights, some midtones, and then some shadows. It's going to really emulate a watercolor and you'll be amazed at how it kind of just comes to life. At this point, I don't want to fully finish all these flowers. Consider this like my sketch. All right, so I'm laying out where I want my main flowers to be so that I can then come in and add my foliage around. I don't want to get this too compact and too full right away. So I'm just kind of sketching out where I want everything to be before I come in and finalize it. So now I'm going to add another flower, and this time I'm using this crazy looking little splotch of nothing, right? It does not look like anything, but trust me, we're going to stamp this a few times, rotating it, and it is going to look like a side shot of a flower. It's it's just amazing how your mind will create a flower. If you see a basic flower shape and a flower center, your mind immediately fills in those details and it looks like a flower. So now that we've got all of our base of our images stamped, it's time to really make them start to take shape, and I'm going to start adding deeper layers of color. So again, I'm using that same funky little detail shape there that I used to create that top flower, and I'm stamping these full strength. This is immediately going to add depth. And now you see me here, I'm trying to decide exactly where I want to put it. And it already looks cupped, and you can see there the center area is going to be a perfect spot for me to add my flower center. I'm also going to add some darker spots or some darker petals to our littler flowers. I have so much fun doing these and just experimenting and figuring out different ways to use each of these little images. And I would highly suggest, if you pick up this set, like I said, just take a sheet of paper and just play. Just try different techniques, different styles. We have a design team member who used these with water. I have yet to even try these with water yet. I was having so much fun doing these particular techniques. But I would just recommend really exploring with the set and finding out exactly what you can do. So here I've just inked up the very edges, did like the rock and roll on the edges of this one. And I'm just going to restamp it right over and bam, look at that. Oh, this one turned out to be one of my favorite flowers in the whole thing. Once we add that center in, it's really going to add depth. And there are two separate flower centers in the set. So there's this bigger one, and then there's this little sliver of one. And what I really like to do is I like to layer them together. So for this one, I'm stamping our flower centers in the silver lining dye ink, and then I'm going to come back in with that little sliver of one, and I'm going to stamp it in our black dye ink. And it's just going to, again, add another level of color. So once we've got our focal points in there, the flowers, we can start coming in and filling in with our foliage. I usually like to start with the largest leaves first and then work my way down to the smaller ones. I wanted some of these to look tucked behind, so I'm using some post-it tape to just mask off the edges. I'm not being overly careful because, again, I mean, half of these images are half stamped anyway, so if it overlaps a little bit or doesn't quite connect, it's not a big deal. It actually adds to the charm of it. So I'm going to continue filling in these leaves, And then once I have all of the base layer of my foliage in, I can come in and again, just like before, start adding my detail layers, that darker color on top. And again, this is really brings it to life. And we are stamping the exact same color, except this time it's full strength. So once I felt like it was pretty much done, I took a step back, looked at it, and decided I didn't quite like that hole right there in the middle. So here you can see me, I'm just going to play around. I didn't want to put it right there because it would trap that white space in between the flower and the leaf. And I thought if I just brought it up a little bit more, masked it off, and tucked it behind, I think that that's going to work out the best. And I was really happy with how it turned out. So that's pretty much all there is to building this bouquet. It's another really fun technique, a way to look at some of those images that don't really look like much when they're on the carrier sheet, but with a little ingenuity, some double stamping, some triple stamping, you can really make some creative flowers out of these things and really stretch the stamp set. And unlike most of the time with stamping, it's really hard to duplicate or do anything twice. Here I tried to do the exact same thing, and they look similar, but they don't look identical, which is really nice because each one will be unique. I just love this technique. So hopefully that gives you a better look at our watercolored anemones and how to use them. You can use them very straightforward, or you can really get creative with them. I encourage you, again, look at those images on that stamp sheet and experiment and play around with them, because you can really find some unique ideas to use with them. Here I've got another example on my blog. I used that same detail image, except for I stamped all of them full strength using our little piggy and our sweet gelato. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. Remember, this stamp set goes on sale June 5th at Wplus9.com. You can find more information and all the links in the description box below. You can connect with us on our blog at stampawaywithme.blogspot.com, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. Remember, we have new releases every other month, and we celebrate on our blog the 1st through the 5th. So if you love our stuff and you want a chance to win some of it or to win store credits, be sure to stop by during release weeks. You can find all that information again in the description box. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.